What's up, you guys? Welcome back to From the Ground Up. Today, we are going to talk about the 3 things that joints need to actually function and why this matters so much for the pelvic floor. Because listen, y'all, the pelvic floor is not just tight or just weak. We don't just need to give Kegels or just need to give relaxation, release, manual therapy, all the things. The pelvic floor is a group of muscles that has to load, has to lengthen, has to recoil, and has to produce force while managing pressure in the system. And so if we want to understand pelvic floor function, we have to, you guessed it, zoom out, y'all. The big idea is this. The joints that move us through space and help us manage load and force transfer and propulsion, those joints need 3 things. Number 1, they need range of motion. Number 2, they need control of that range of motion. And number 3, they need strength and power to move out of that range of motion. Okay, that's it. Those are the 3 things. And this is important for pelvic floor function, particularly because the pelvic floor has to do the same thing. It has to load eccentrically. It has to power up concentrically. It has to manage those pressures. And it has to do all of that in a relationship with the pelvis, the ribcage, the feet, the hips, and the rest of the entire system, you guys. Okay, let's start with the range of motion. First things first, our joints need range of motion. Novel concept. We know this, y'all. We know that a joint has to be able to access the range of motion it was designed to move through, okay? When we are talking about the pelvis specifically, that means the pelvis needs access to both internal and external rotation. That's iliums, that's also femurs inside the pelvis, okay? It needs to be able to move into positions that allow the pelvic floor muscles to lengthen and load. And you can imagine the pelvic floor muscles attached to the bones of the pelvis. So when the bones of the pelvis move, there is a length tension change of the muscles that attach there, okay? It needs to be able to move into positions that allow those pelvic floor muscles to change length and accept load. And it needs to be able to move into positions that allow the pelvic floor to get that recoil so it can produce force, okay? If the pelvis, the bones, if they do not have adequate range of motion, then the pelvic floor muscles will lose options, okay? Full stop. They will lose options. And when the pelvic floor muscle loses options to absorb force and pressure or to create a recoil and help push the pressure up and out, that is when we will see symptoms, we will see compensation, all the things. This is the same with any joint in our body, not just the pelvis, y'all. Our foot, our midfoot, right? It needs full range of motion of pronation and supination. Our ankle needs full range of motion of dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, okay? Our knee needs flexion and extension and some rotation. Our hip, our femur inside of our pelvis needs external rotation, internal rotation, flexion, extension. It needs this motion, okay? Throughout the body, our joints that are designed to propel us through space or slow us down, those joints need full range of motion, okay? That one shouldn't be super hard for us to grasp. We're PTs and OTs, we're coaches, we're movement professionals. We understand that joints need range of motion, and there is a normal range for each and every joint for how much it's supposed to move, okay? We need that full range of motion, point number 1. Number 2, we need control of that range of motion, okay? We have to control, if we have let's say we do have passive range of motion, right? We're assessing someone's hip joint and they have full range of motion, okay? Well, we're not done. They have to have control of that range or else they're going to be floppy, right? We're going to see a lot of, hip drop and uncontrolled pelvic pronation and all those things. It is not enough to just have range of motion and mobility. We need to be able to control the mobility at that joint. This is especially where eccentric control matters, okay? Concentric as well, right? Because we do need to be able to have strength and power and produce force concentrically through the entire range of motion, not just in a shortened range, but especially eccentric control matters here because if we have full range of motion, yet we're seeing a floppy pelvis, an uncontrolled pelvis, we're lacking that eccentric control. We're lacking the control that as those muscles lengthen and load, they're not managing that load well. They're overloaded, okay? When muscles work eccentrically, right, they are contracting or kind of holding that contraction while they lengthen at the same time. They are controlling motion as the body moves into a load. At the pelvic floor, this matters because the pelvic floor has to be able to lengthen under that pressure. This is the same thing as that trampoline. We jump on a trampoline, the trampoline itself descends, it stretches, it lengthens. That is an eccentric load to the trampoline. Pelvic floor must be able to do that as well because that's how it stores forces to then be able to, propel and push and power upward and move pressure up. It has to be able to yield downward as pressure moves down, load like a trampoline. But it cannot just collapse, much like, our hip external rotators, they can't just collapse into internal rotation. It has to lengthen with control. Hip external rotators have to lengthen with control so we're not getting hip impingement and things like that. Foot, we have to lengthen. We have to pronate, which is a lengthening mechanism. The arch is lengthening eccentrically. The posterior tibialis is lengthening eccentrically to allow that midfoot to go into pronation, right? It has to be controlled though. So range of motion, yes, we need it. We need full range of motion. And we need control of that range of motion throughout the body, not just at the pelvis, throughout the body. Okay, point number 3. If we need range of motion, we need control of that range of motion. We also need strength and power so we have the ability to power out of that range of motion, okay? Once the body has loaded, so we've controlled that range of motion, we have loaded that joint, it needs to be able to recoil back out of it to propel us through space, whatever that looks like, whether we're just walking down the street, whether we are bending over to pick up our toddler and we got to stand back up, whether we are playing soccer and we're cutting side to side, it doesn't matter. The body, once it loads into that range of motion, needs the strength and power to get out of it as well. Okay, once muscles have lengthened, they need to be able to reshorten in a powerful manner. Once the system has absorbed that force, wherever it is, it needs to then be able to convert that energy into force production. Okay, that's how we move. That is how we move through space. This is the concentric side of things. This is propulsion. This is recoil. This is power. The pelvic floor needs this as well. It needs to be able to rebound after it is lengthened. Once that trampoline, if we're picturing trampoline, once that trampoline has stretched down, it's going to recoil back up. It's going to power whoever's jumping on it back up and off the trampoline, right? Pelvic floor is the same. It needs to be able to rebound after it lengthens. It needs to contribute to the system-wide pressure management, moving pressure back up and out to force production. How are we sprinting? How are we chasing our kids? How are we lifting heavy objects off the floor? Pelvic floor needs to participate in that and just in all the functional movements that we go through in our day-to-day life, right? So applying these 3 concepts directly to pelvic floor function, right? When we are thinking about pelvic floor function, we can not only be asking, is the pelvic floor tense or tight? Is it weakened, lengthened? Can they contract it? Can they do a Kegel? Can they relax it? Can they let the Kegel go? We actually need to be asking because none of those things tell us how the pelvic floor functions in the 3 things that we need for movement, right? None of those things, whether it's tight, weak, they can Kegel, they can relax, none of those things tell us if we have adequate range of motion, adequate eccentric load ability, and adequate power, okay? Instead, we need to be asking, can the pelvic floor load eccentrically? So what are the things necessary from a joint movement perspective to allow the pelvic floor to descend and load eccentrically, right? Can the pelvic floor lengthen under that pressure? Again, can we get that eccentric length of the muscles as pressure is increasing to manage that pressure? Can we control that lengthening? So are we not just going to lengthen and bottom out, right, and get all this downward pressure? And can the pelvic floor recoil concentrically? Are we setting it up for success from a bony perspective, from where our iliums are in space and how we're moving and breathing? Can the pelvic floor then recoil concentrically to help push those guts and pressure back up? Can it power up when the system needs support, right? Can it do all that while the person is moving, breathing, lifting, running, jumping, coughing, sneezing, and living their life? Those are much better clinical questions than is it tight or is it weak? Okay. So just let's move past it. Let's all collectively agree that we're going to move past the pelvic floor is tight or the pelvic floor is weak. Because at the end of the day, that doesn't tell us anything functionally. All right. And because the pelvic floor is connected to the pelvis, the pelvis needs those three things that we mentioned. It needs its range of motion. It needs control of the range of motion, and it needs the ability to have strength and power out of that range, okay? If the pelvis cannot internally rotate, externally rotate, expand, compress, yield, recoil, then guess what? The pelvic floor is not going to be set up. It's not going to be optimized to be able to do its job well because the pelvic floor muscles are not functioning alone. They're not just this random group of muscles in a vacuum. They are responding to things. They are responding to pressure changes. And what tells them or allows them to be able to work appropriately and automatically and responsively is the bony position of the pelvis, okay? And if we zoom out any further, the pelvis is responding to forces from the ground up, how the foot, the ankle, the knee, the femur, how all of that is responding to load and force transfer is dictating what the pelvis is doing, which is dictating what the pelvic floor muscles can and cannot do. Okay. Same thing from the top down. The rib cage, okay? The pelvis is responding to how the rib cage is compressing and expanding, rotating, whether it is or is not rotating and compressing or expanding. What position is the rib cage in? The pelvis is responding to all of those things up at the rib cage, and that is dictating whether or not the pelvic bones have adequate range of motion, control of that range of motion, and ability to power out of that range of motion. Okay, the pelvis is the central hub of our body. It is the central zone. Its main job is transfer of forces as we move through our life, move through space, go through functional movements that we do every second of every single day. Okay, that's the job of the pelvis, right? One of its main jobs is to transfer load and force. Okay, it cannot do that if the rib cage from the top down and from the ground up, from the foot, ankle, knee, femur, all those things are not also getting adequate range of motion, control of that range of motion, propulsion and strength and power out of that range of motion. Okay. This is why we have to be looking from the top down and from the ground up, y'all. From the ground up, we have all these influences in the kinetic chain. From the top down, we have all these pressure influences by the rib cage, breathing mechanics, thoracic rotation, abdominal pressure, the way the system manages load. The pelvis is in the middle, y'all. It's literally sandwiched in the middle of those two things. So if there is a loss of range of motion, if there is a loss of control of that range of motion, or if there is not enough power somewhere else in the system, the pelvic floor is likely going to be the place where we see compensations and or symptoms and breakdown, okay? And that is why pelvic floor dysfunction is typically not necessarily a pelvic floor muscle problem. It is just where we are seeing the dang breakdown, okay? And it's our job to be a detective and figure out why the heck it's happening, okay? We got to look top down. We got to look ground up. We got to look at the whole thing, all right? So the big idea is this. The pelvic floor has to be able to access that eccentric loading ability. And it has to be able to power up out of that, just like that trampoline coming up, concentrically, all while managing pressure, okay? Managing these pressure changes throughout the system as we move through life, okay? And for that to happen, for the pelvic floor to be able to load and power back up in its automatic, responsive, anticipatory way that it knows and loves and wants to do, it has to be set up for success, y'all. It has to have a pelvis that can internally and externally rotate, that can compress, expand, all of the things. And in order for the pelvis to be able to do that, the rest of the kinetic chain needs those three things. We need range of motion, we need control of that range of motion, and we need the strength and power to move out of that range of motion. When one or all or any of those three pieces is missing, the pelvic floor muscles are going to lose options. They're going to have less ability to eccentrically load and concentrically power back up, to move pressure back up and out, to clamp off the urethra. It's not going to have those options because of length tension relationships caused by bony position at the pelvis that was caused by lack of one or all of those three things somewhere else. All right. When the pelvic floor loses options, this is when we have pelvic floor symptoms: heaviness, pressure, prolapse, leaking, tailbone pain, back pain, painful intercourse, hip pain. You name it. It doesn't matter what the symptom is. The pelvic floor is dysfunctional because of something else in the system. We got to find it. So be checking those three things in the kinetic chain and up at the rib cage. Do we have range of motion? Do we have control of that range of motion? And does this person have strength and power to power out of that range of motion? All right. If you guys found this helpful, I would love it, for one, if you would share this to your stories, tag me. I love seeing that you guys are enjoying the show and that it's helpful. I also love it when y'all DM me. Okay. DM me. What was the most helpful thing? Was there a light bulb moment? Do you have questions? DM me. Okay. I love these conversations, but you guys, truly, if we're going to change the game of pelvic health, we have to do this together. I cannot be the only one shouting from the rooftops, y'all. This is why I ask y'all to share, because if this is helping you, it's going to help other people too. So that's why it matters. That's why it's so meaningful to me when you share, because that's how we're going to change the game. We have to be better together. We have to support each other. We have to share things that we are learning, even if it's challenging the way that we've done things in the past. And even if it's, challenging our beliefs about pelvic floor function, all of those things, those are good things. It's a good thing to be challenged and to be, bringing up questions about what's happening and what you've always understood it to be versus what it could be. Okay. That is good. That is how we move this field forward, y'all. So please share. It would mean the world to me. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and let's change the game, you guys.